יהי רצון פרשת שמיני לקראת פסח, יהי רצון דלימוד שבי לרפואת כל החולים, ובתוכם טניה בת הודה מרגלית, יוסף יאיר בן אבי רחבה, הרב סיוון בן סימה, בתוך כל שאר חולי ישראל. Baruch Hashem, we're getting closer to Pesach, and there's a lot of preparation to do, a lot of cleaning to do, a lot of exciting foods to make for the Seder. So we're going to try just a little bit to gain ideas to share with our families, Bezat Hashem, at the Seder, and more than share, hopefully experience. So when we think about the matzah, it's very, very clear what it looks like. We know, most of us, what it tastes like and what it doesn't taste like. That's pretty simple. But the question comes, what is the symbolism of the matzah? And there are two questions that I would want to raise on the matzah. The first question is, what does it symbolize? And the Haggadah in the end of Magid specifies that there are three specific things that we need to do on the Seder night, according to Rabban Gamliel, and it's Pesach, matzah, and maror. And when we eat the matzah, we say, matzah zu al shum ma, and the answer is, al shum shelo hespeak b'tzeikam shel avotenu lachmitz, meaning, when we left Egypt, we didn't have enough time for our dough to rise. And because it didn't rise, it was matzah. And therefore, when we eat the matzah, we remember this speed that we left Egypt in. But the question about this symbolism is that it's very obvious and very clear that the speed needs to be understood. And most of us grow up thinking that the reason we were rushing and the reason for the speed was because of the fear of the Egyptians. But if we look inside the Torah, it's very obvious. The reason that that we were rushing out could not have been because of the Egyptians. The same night is Makat Bechorot, and they were mourning in their homes. They were not running after us. So the obvious question needs to be, what was the rush? Why did we need to run? And the second question is, we were slaves for 210 years. We experienced misery and challenge. And then we went into redemption. And the object that symbolizes this moment is the matzah. And so the thing that needs to be understood is, what is it about the matzah that teaches us the difference between slavery and redemption? And so to answer the first question, the Sfat Emet in the year 1872 says something phenomenal. He says that the reason that the matzah is because it couldn't rise. And he asks himself, what was the reason that the matzah needed to be eaten the dough needed to be eaten in a rush? And he says something that we really need to understand. He says that there's a concept called memtet sha'arei tumah. The idea of memtet sha'arei tumah is that tumah is complicated. It's not either tameh or tahor. Even within the world of tumah, there are 49 levels. So there could be someone that forgets to do a mitzvah. And then there could be someone that doesn't like doing a mitzvah. And then there could be someone that doesn't want to do the mitzvah. It's different. They might all not be doing the same thing, but the reason is different. So there's something called memtet sha'arei tumah. Says the Sfat Emet, according to many of the Sfarim in the books, Am Yisrael at the moment of Yetziat Mitzrayim was on memtet. They were on the lowest level of tumah. They do not believe in Moshe, and barely any of them believe in God. They look like Egyptians, they act like Egyptians, they think like Egyptians. We look in Perek Bet and we see that they're beating each other. And there's hatred between them. And they're yelling at Moshe in Perek Hey. So it says this Sfat Emet, Am Yisrael was on the lowest level. And there's a certain idea that teaches that if you reach the next level, there's no way to come back. There's a certain mistake that you can make. A level of tumah that you could reach that can never ever be changed. It can't be transformed. And Am Yisrael was in exactly that moment. And if they would have stayed in Egypt for one more second, they could have reached that level of Nun, the last level of tumah, and they would have never ever been able to return. And the need for the speed wasn't because of the Egyptians, but it was because of the Jews. They were in such a difficult in such a problematic moment. They were not shining. They were not beautiful. You had nothing to show. We had no Torah. We had no books. We had no land. We had no army. We had barely any mitzvot. We had nothing to show. You have nothing to show. And that is the reason for the rush. Because one more second could have made the difference of the Am Yisrael staying in slavery forever. And so what is the idea of the rush? The rush was teaching us that we could have never, ever left Egypt. We could have been forever in this experience of slavery. If you think about the matzah, the only difference between the matzah and the chametz is 1 second. It's the same ingredients. And if you let it rise for more than 18 minutes, that's where the game ends, in that 1 second. And if you look at the spelling of chametz and matzah, they both have a mem and a tzadi. And the only difference in the hey and the chet is one little line, meaning that there's a concept that the difference between the greatest thing and the lowest level sometimes is the way that you look at a moment, the way that you focus and understand that this might be the moment, not a moment. It's not another mitzvah, it's the mitzvah. We live in times where we collect things, where everything is numbers, but that's not real redemption. The real redemption was teaching Am Yisrael a very simple message, which was, in 1 second, you could have been there forever, and in that same second, you released yourself and became free. But that's what you need to understand when you're eating the matzah. That it's not only about what we're doing, but a lot of times the way that we do it. We get to have a dinner with our family, but do we have our phones with us? We get to go on a date, but do we bring a book to have a chavruta? We get to make a bracha, but do we think about it for more than a minute? And I think that the main message of the matzah is to realize and understand that true redemption is when we stop focusing on quantity, is when we stop thinking that numbers define us. Is when, I was just speaking to a sofer, and one of the sofrim I just saw, he wrote the number. And I said to him, there's no numbers in the Sefer Torah. There's no numbers. You could write the word arba, but you can't write the number arba. There are no numbers in the Torah. Because numbers are dangerous. They don't let us feel the symbolism, the opportunity of the moment. And so my bracha, as we enter into the matzah and we think about the reason that it couldn't rise, is because we need to utilize the moment. We need to utilize the second. We need to understand that a lot of times what we're doing will affect us if the way we do it is that we're focused on it. Shabbat Shalom.